Hello and welcome back to the Survival Horror Guide, a show where we play and then review survival horror games. We rate them on their fear factor, and we give them an overall score. Finally, we send it over to the series' totally arbitrary rating system to see how it stacks up against the rest of the survival horror competition. Today for the show, the people have spoken. I put out a poll on the channel, and winning by a narrow margin is F.E.A.R. First Encounter Assault Recon. Assault Recon. It doesn't really make any sense. Kind of an oxymoron, but it is a cool-ass acronym. F.E.A.R. is a horror first-person shooter that came out in 2005 on PC and would later receive ports to both Xbox 360 and PS3. I remember playing this game on the 360 like 15 years ago. I never finished it, and it was almost nostalgic going back and playing this again, and I remember seeing ads of this game everywhere. It was a pretty big deal back in the day. During this game's development, creepy little girls had taken over mainstream horror, and that definitely had an influence on F.E.A.R.
You're all going to die down here.
The creepy girl in this game is named Alma, who is of course the centerpiece of this game's box art, all of this game's promotional material. When I think of F.E.A.R., Alma is usually what comes to mind. Excuse me? But once you boot up the game and actually start playing, where's Alma? Alma's role is actually quite minimal. She's largely kept a mystery. The main character, who doesn't even have a name, typically just goes by Point Man, only catches glimpses of Alma throughout the course of the game, from very deliberate, scripted sequences to even more effective moments where she can briefly be seen behind a corner, behind glass, where it's not even guaranteed that the player will actually see her. It feels way more organic, and I'm sure there's moments that I even missed, but the moments where I did catch her were honestly very effective, very creepy. Again, these moments are fairly few and far between, and maybe that adds to it, but in the meantime, how's the actual gameplay? Holy shit. Yeah, this game is probably 5% horror and 95% ultra-violent super soldier simulator. Seriously, you play as F.E.A.R.'s Point Man, going into these locations by yourself and completely massacring these clone soldiers single-handedly. It's kind of awesome. And yes, I said clone soldiers. The game starts off with you playing as a rookie F.E.A.R. operative who's been sent to eliminate a man named Paxton Fettel, a creepy-ass cannibal who is commanding a squadron of clone soldiers telepathically. This game's story is actually pretty wild, and at first glance, you'd figure this game's backstory is probably more paranormal, when in reality it's very sci-fi. And learning about Paxton's backstory as well as our main character, and eventually peeling back the layers and learning how everything links back to Alma, shit was really cool. I feel this game is not really known for its story, but it turned out to be awesome. I wasn't a huge fan of the overabundance of backstory being told through all these voicemails that you find throughout the game, but looking back on it now, these are skippable for a reason, because they're not really imperative to the story, but I did feel obligated to listen to all of them. Stay right there. Great. I was not expecting her to be there. And going back to the action, yes, you're playing as a serious badass, taking on hundreds and hundreds of clone soldiers, all by your lonesome, and you do find out in the story why your character is so damn skilled, but the combat itself has actually aged insanely well. I honestly forgot that I was playing a game from over 15 years ago. The gunplay is super tight, it feels great, slowdown mechanic is awesome, not just important to overcome some of the more difficult encounters, but it's just simply fun as hell. You can tell they watched The Matrix once or twice while making this game. Close. We shot him and the grenade, dude. And goddamn, dude, when this game first came out, it was an absolute technical showcase. At the time, this was the game you'd use to benchmark before Crysis came out. The environments are not technically that impressive, but it's the damn lighting that's so freaking good. the crazy particles and effects in the middle of a gunfight, it still looks very good. I played through the good old games GOG version and it was awesome. The 360 and PS3 counterparts don't really do it justice. I will say though, the game's not perfect. First, if you're coming into this expecting a full-on horror experience, you're gonna be disappointed. This is an action game first. The game is also very samey. Through the entire course of the game, the combat encounters, how they play out, how you approach them, they're the same at the beginning as they are at the end. I do wish there was just a bit more variety. Not just in the gameplay, but also the environments. I feel so much of this game is spent in very drab, bland-looking warehouses and maintenance tunnels. The environments, they're just not interesting. And like, again, maybe that's the point, because when you do see something creepy, a glimpse of Alma, a bloody corpse, anything like that, put against the very sterile backdrop, there is a contrast there that makes it hit a bit harder. But I couldn't help but yearn for more interesting scenery. Oh! You guys, I thought that was a head! On the fear factor scale, this game is an 8. You know, it's a tough one to score. You'll go 10 minutes with non-stop action and forget you're playing a horror game. And then you'll see something genuinely terrifying, and yeah, this game got me multiple times. Overall, this game is an 8.5. Horror first-person shooters are not exactly a common blend of genres, because it's hard to pull off. One thing horror games tend to lean on is making the player character defenseless and vulnerable, to create a sense of terror. Fear does the complete opposite of that and still finds a way to make it scary, which is commendable on its own. Now taking it over to the series' totally arbitrary rating system, F.E.A.R is going to slide in at number 8. You know, which seems low, but as more and more games get added to this list, that top 5 is going to get harder and harder to break into. Thank you so much for watching this episode of the Survival Horror Guide. As always, if you enjoyed it, please hit the like button. It really does help me out a lot. And keep an eye out for polls on the channel in the future to help us decide what games we're going to cover on this series next. Thanks so much for watching this one, guys. Peace!